Welcome and good evening, Board of Directors and Superintendent Larios, our guests, those in person and online as well. Thank you for joining us this evening to our regular board meeting. It is now 5:45, and I will now call the regular board meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we all have the agenda before us. So we have a motion to adopt the agenda.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I second that.
All in favor of adopting the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 vote. So next we will be moving into executive session, ORS 192.6602F, to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. So I will now call for executive session.
We're gonna move upstairs, so conference room. Yes. What?
Well, mine is like weirding.
What do you mean?
Oh, the spray. Yeah, it gets too foamy. Should we use the other one? Which other one? The red one. This one? The brand new one? Oh, yes. Yes, yes. Or just like working to girls just want to have fun dancing around with a towel on a food. You could be a inspector if they want to. Do it. I mean, exactly. So sweaty. Ugh. Why you just, what's going on?
Okay, now don't make fun of us sweaters. Do you bleach the ground?
No, I'd use 409.
Like, no, I did, but like behind the toilet and stuff?
Yeah, I would do it, bleach around the toilet, the floor around the toilet. But the rest of the floor will use 409.
and in the shower, and then that was the very last step. Reiterate 15 times, very last step. What are you doing? Okay. Okay. What shall we do now?
One moment. I'm rewriting, I'm trying to put this in.
I distracted you with my hot ball.
Sometimes terms for lack of sanctity or lack of recognition, like not keeping something. Saying both the sanctity of the privacy rights of the student as well as the potential for biased reactions on the part of the board member is great, but it makes it seem like the sanctity is great and it's not. Both,
My cinnamon game is weak tonight. No, I just saw you, Dick Warren. Why did you do that? I didn't even.
don't flash your deck, please.
You pulled your underwear down. I was like this. But that's it. No. Yeah.
Saw your upper area.
No, I thought you did.
No, you did. Or
I know. I saw you. Hoo-ha.
No, you didn't. There's something in your teeth.
Still there. Still there. Still there.
You gotta poke your Tweety bird.
I need just a little prototype. You can poke this.
That's also Tweety bird.
skiv off, duck shove.
What's that one? I don't know. These are the ones that poke for your cholesterol. You got a cholesterol poking. Skibbity dum dum dum, yes, yes. Skibbity skibbity dee. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Probably didn't want
Both
to.
perfect. Both. Disregard.
There.
Sorry, I'm almost done.
You're good. Okay, yes. I talked it. You left me off of you. What? I'm talking now.
The disregard of the student's privacy rights
Is.
is
Ever get to meet Ryan Trey?
apparent. And
Well, he's really short too, so like now, you know, compared to in one of his videos, compared to someone who was 5'6", he was shorter. You know, I'm 5'2".
maybe he was like down a step on the water slide.
Oh, maybe. No, it wasn't on the water slide though, it was just on the streets. Maybe the streets go a bit. And that is short, yeah.
You guys are both shorter than I anticipated.
We are? 5'2". You're 5'2"? I'm 5'7", 5'8". Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh, he looks good. What? Is he looking so? Dog. Dog's over there. What if I gave you some caffeine? That would be fun. What's to you? It's good. You moved. Yeah. Okay, you do, because I'm looking at that, it's like, they could see you moving on. And here's your voice. And.
Oh, shoot. Oh, oh my God. I'm not muted.
And so the next item on our agenda is public comment. Thank you for being at the Woodburn School District Board meeting tonight and for sharing your comments with the board. Hearing from our families and our community is important to us. During this section, the board's role is to listen. We will not be engaging in dialogue with folks making comments. When follow-up is warranted, that will usually be done through our superintendent. As a reminder, we model the way for our children. Please keep your comments respectful and do not personally identify staff or students by name, as this may violate HR and student privacy laws. We want to leave time for everyone, so please keep your comments to 3 minutes per person. Thank you. I would like to invite Liza Veliz.
Hello,
Okay.
just checking. Good afternoon. My name is Liza Veliz. I have been a teacher for over 25 years. Today, I wish to discuss the impact of attrition at French Prairie. While I understand the rationale behind certain decisions, I am concerned about the disproportionate effect on teachers that will impact students. Our school has lost 3 certified teachers whose positions remain unfilled. This has created a ripple effect. Class sizes will now average at least 28 students. I am currently an elective teacher at French Prairie, where I have taught AVID, publications, and a new elective content creator class. I am particularly proud of my work with the AVID Excel class, which focuses on language acquisition. I had 15 ELL students, 10 of whom passed the ELPA, a success I attribute to the small class size and continuity with the same group of students. We now have 30 7th and 8th grade students combined in AVID Excel. Research shows that large classroom sizes can lead to student disengagement and feelings of isolation. Building relationships with students has a profound effect on behavior within the classroom, directly impacting student engagement. It also concerns me that these large class sizes that I will be limited in the support I can provide to students. This situation is inequitable and unfair to our ELL students. Additionally, over the past 2 years, I have developed 2 new electives at French Prairie, publications and content creator. These electives were designed to engage students while also integrating ELP standards to provide additional support in reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills. The district has also invested a considerable amount of money, professional development, out-of-state conferences, collaboration opportunities, and material to support these electives. These investments have made the courses highly engaging and beneficial for students who may think about a future career in these areas. Despite the success of these programs, I am no longer able to teach some of these courses due to attrition. These responsibilities have been assigned to other teachers who have not received the same support, training, or have the same passion for the content. Next school year at French Prairie, half of our classroom teachers are assigned to teach 3 or 4 preps due to attrition. This will make it difficult for teachers to decide which professional learning community they will be a part of for their content area. Collaboration is crucial for French Prairie staff and has been instrumental in developing authentic and engaging content for students. With the current schedule, it leaves very little room for teachers to collaborate and teach with fidelity. Instead, we'll be treading water trying to teach multiple courses. Some of these courses were created without teacher input, have never been taught before, have no curriculum or budget, and will now have larger class sizes. I urge the school board to consider the significant impact of attrition on teachers and students. Take some steps to address these issues to ensure equitable and effective education for all. Consider the impact of your children, some of whom I've had the privilege of teaching and others I may teach in the future. Open up the district checkbook, make some assessments, and balance it out. It feels like attrition has only affected teachers. The number of certified staff has been reduced significantly. Thank you for your time and attention.
Sydney Van Steenberg.
Sorry, I don't have a printer out for me, so I had to bring my whole laptop.
That works.
Hello, my name is Sydney Van Stever, and I currently teach computer science and other elective classes at French Prairie Middle School. I'm here today to express my concerns regarding new classes being added to the schedule, losing FTE, having a reduction in budget, and a lack of teacher involvement when key decisions were made about the upcoming school year. First, the issue of losing teachers is troubling, and these losses have an immense impact on class sizes and teacher workload. My concern is that while we are reducing FTE and increasing class sizes, teachers are being assigned multiple newly created classes for the upcoming school year. The creation of these new classes appears to have been done without teacher involvement, established curriculum, proper planning time, or a plan for funding necessary materials. This has created a situation where teachers are expected to teach and engage students in new classes with no planning time or the needed resources before the upcoming school year begins. In the Woodburn School District promise, the following statement was made. Our board's mission and vision for the district in their strategic plan, along with feedback gathered leading up to the development of this budget, provide us with priorities. Then the following priorities were listed: dual language, CTE, family and student engagement programs, and social, emotional, and mental health support for students. At French Prairie, there have been new dual language, CTE, and elective classes added to the schedule. While adding these classes might look like these priorities are being met, it is essential that any addition to our schools be accompanied by sufficient resources, a plan for sustained funding, teacher involvement, and adequate planning time. Without these fundamental elements, the success of these classes and the overall engagement of our students is at risk. Additionally, it is concerning that newly created classes are being added to the schedule while math and reading intervention classes are being removed. Several classes are now combining 7th and 8th grade students together, and student access time to the library is being reduced. These decisions affect all French Prairie students, but disproportionately impact the support we are providing to our ELL students. I am here advocating for the students and staff at French Prairie since we were not included in this process. As educators and stakeholders in our students' education, we value transparency and accountability regarding decisions that impact our ability as teachers to provide quality instruction to our students. I encourage you to ask questions regarding decisions being made, spend time in classrooms that support your mission and vision, and connect with teachers throughout the district who directly impact students each day. I want to end by saying thank you to all of our instructional coaches and our Director of Technology. The past 2 years, they have created opportunity and support for professional learning and collaboration. Without their investment in supporting teachers, the creation of authentic and engaging learning in our current computer science and CTE classes at the middle school level would not have been possible. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Jenny Song.
Good afternoon. My name is Jenny Salm. I have been in the district for over 20 years, currently serving as a middle school Spanish language arts teacher at Battle Alpalo. Throughout my tenure, I have closely observed the development of the dual language program in the early 2000s. The district committed itself to establishing Woodburn as a leader in bilingual education, aiming to create truly bilingual students using research-based models. Recent changes to the dual program concerns me. Over the past 3 years, 4th and 5th grade students have received literacy instruction only in English, while receiving math, science, and social studies in Spanish. The idea being that the students will be able to access the Spanish language arts standards through what is known as bridging. As a veteran teacher under such a model, I know that it is very difficult to crunch months of academic language in a second language at the end of an English unit. How can I continue to prepare my students for higher levels in Spanish instruction under such conditions? This shift has serious repercussions for middle schools, as a lack of literacy instruction in Spanish may leave the students without the academic language needed to tackle Spanish literature. How can students be expected to analyze literary texts, understand an author's purpose, character development, plot structure, and figurative language while only receiving Spanish instruction in math, science, and in social studies? How can middle school teachers prepare students for truly biliteracy when they have not received instruction in these basic areas since third grade? Furthermore, Spanish language arts in middle school will no longer be considered a core subject. Now, with this requirement, our students might not wish to continue in the program. One thing is clear to me. With this change in the dual language program, we are not offering our students or our community the full scope of what we promise. What is stated on paper is significantly different from the actual reality. It breaks my heart to see our district move in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Tony Song.
Good evening. Last month, a Brave District employee spoke here about an incident that she witnessed last May at Nellie Muir, where a member of this board, in a private capacity, appropriated space at the school normally used by district employed and counselors in order to work with a student. This employee expressed strong concerns about why a member of this school board has been regularly working one-on-one with students as a private counselor at the same time that she is fulfilling the role of public trust. I'm here to echo her concerns, as well as to state that the incident that she spoke of was not isolated to one school, one day, or one student. At Heritage, where I currently teach fifth grade, the board chair has been holding weekly counseling sessions in a private capacity for one of my students. To my knowledge, this has been happening outside of any standard referral processes involving school counselors, school psychologists, or classroom teachers. Each Thursday morning, with mysterious explanations, I would get a call from the office asking me to send this student to the counseling office. One of those weeks, the call said to send the student for reading group. Another week, it was for math. Neither of those things were true. To be clear, I do not hold our school secretaries responsible for these questionable explanations. They are clearly coming from somewhere else. More recently, I got the call in the middle of state testing. I was told I needed to send the same student. Given our training to never allow testing sessions to be interrupted, I protested, but was still told that I needed to send this student even if it was during a test. A review by the Oregon Government Ethics Commission issued on May 1st of this year states that the board chair may have been attempting to use her position with the district to gain new clients for her business even before entering her contact with the district, concluding that there appears to be a substantial objective basis to conclude that the board chair may have violated Oregon government ethics laws. In the report, one of this district's own directors stated that she felt pressure to provide space for counseling by the board chair because of her role as district board chair. While a follow-up communication from the Ethics Commission did not find cause to proceed with the investigation, the facts as stated remain valid and are a matter of public record. Whether our board chair has technically violated the law is beside the point. An actual conflict of interest is often indistinguishable from a perception of one. One might ask, have any other private counselors been granted similar access to our students and facilities during the school day? We need to focus on whether a person who has prompted unmistakable alarms about unethical behavior among staff at all levels, should be entrusted with making decisions for the benefit of all students while standing to gain financially from bypassing existing referral processes. Nobody would question the fact that additional counselors are needed in the district, so let's hire them as full-time employees instead of looking to a part-time elected official who has a clear conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Katrina Bignell.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Rena Bicknell. My pronouns are she and they. This board is supposedly committed to a full K-12 dual language immersion curriculum throughout the district. Changing immersive language to elective language breaks this commitment. In terms of ESOL literacy, how do we protect it? I did some research to find out. I reached out to the authors of a paper by Dr. Virginia Collier and Dr. Wayne Thomas. It was a 32-year longitudinal study on dual language immersion published in 2017. I emailed them because I only could get access to the summary. Thankfully, they responded to my email quickly and added some vital information about Woodburn. As it turns out, they are both very familiar with Woodburn School District, as this was one of their research sites for several years. Former superintendents David Bautista and Chuck Ransom, as well as former principal Victor Vergara, helped Collier and Thomas write the book on dual language immersion. In the paper they sent me, they state that the question they ask in every study is how long does it take for school-age English learners just beginning acquisition of the English language to achieve grade level in their second language and stay at grade level throughout the remainder of their schooling? The answer, in short, is that dual immersion means 50% of their curriculum is taught in their first language. Dual immersion starting in kindergarten means it will take a student an average of 6 years to achieve grade level literacy in both their first and second language. When starting later than kindergarten, it means that it will take a student an average of 7 to 10 years to achieve grade level literacy in both languages. Dr. Collier also added a couple comments to her email. Quote, "We also helped to write the dual language manual for Woodburn School District." About that. Quote, "We would be very sad if the strong dual language program there is not continuing with what works so well." Quote, "We love Woodburn School District and we truly want all the students to succeed in school and life." I would be shocked if this sentiment was not shared by every single person in this room. Woodburn is considered a gold standard for dual language immersion, but this can only continue to be the case, if we keep investing in our students' biliteracy. When you cut crucial biliteracy positions, such as the sole elementary Russian reading teacher, you demonstrate that you do not value our students' success. We have already seen an exodus of families and students from the district. Invest in our students' education if you truly believe in Woodburn being a multicultural, multilingual district. Refer back to the dual language manual to see what works. Don't continue to erode the keystone for our students' success.
I don't think I'm going to pronounce his last name correctly, but I would like to invite Mr. Lee.
My name is Lee Petrozewski. I teach 8th grade at French Prairie Middle School. Members of the Woodburn community, friends, parents, students, teachers, and district staff, I'm here to talk with you about a pressing problem, not just at French Prairie, but in the district and the nation at large, the choice to starve school libraries. We can here and now lay down a marker that such budgeting choices are unacceptable. In April of this year, we were called to a staff meeting before the school day, during which we heard news we can all be proud of regarding our library. We were told in glowing terms about the valuable contributions that have come from our library specialists tireless efforts to make our library a place where students want to be and to bring in resources they want to explore. We were told about a 400% increase in circulation of materials since 2021, a joyous statistic in a community with serious barriers to literacy and engagement with academics. Then we were informed after the meeting that library staff had been told previously that morning that their assignment would be changing for the 2024-25 school year, and they would now teach 4 class periods of English language arts each day. This means that our library, with its proven record of success, announced that very day, will only be open to students and ELA classes at most 3 periods per day next year, and that it will cease to be open for any students who wish to utilize the space during lunch recess periods. Across 2 lunch periods, there have been at least 25 students accessing the library and its resources to spend their time in a space where many of our most vulnerable students felt safe and comfortable. Oregon Battle of the Books contestants also met in the library, which will no longer be possible with this new assignment for library staff. A possibly fatal disruption locally of a valuable program which promotes literacy in schools across the state. Library staff has now been assigned 3 classes they have never taught before, and 2 of which they are not prepared with curriculum or even the standards mapping that is the guide for teacher preparation, along with continuing to manage a library used by nearly 600 students, all with only a single additional day of paid preparation this summer. These burdens will necessarily cause a decrease in standards and quality of library access. The skill with which library staff has navigated almost daily assignments to substitute in classrooms and the demands of organizing, developing, and maintaining access to literacy resources has been fantastic so far. And this change is one that cannot be ignored or accepted as simply the cost of budget issues at the district level, especially as we watch district level positions added and filled and in-school positions left unfilled and class sizes grow. Our students, our community's children deserve better. And one essential way to address their needs is a school library that is open and available to them. We are losing that, in spite of the successes it has shown. I'm here to support our library experts and to ask the community to demand that all district stakeholders reallocate funding to allow our libraries to be open to our students every period of every day that they are in school. They deserve it. I was a library kid, and I don't know where I'd be if it had been taken away from me. We can't let it be taken from this community's children.
Thank you. Jessica Sampson.
Hi, thank you for your patience while I navigate technology. I'm pulling up my statement now. So hello, I'm Jessica Sampson, a special education teacher at Nellie Muir Elementary here in Woodburn School District. I'm speaking today regarding the concerns voiced by Katrina Bicknell and others about a board chair member acting as a private service counselor for students enrolled in the Woodburn District. As many have expressed, this seems to be a direct conflict and unethical dealing around both therapeutic relationships as well as potentially financially lucrative endeavors that involve the very students that this chair member is charged with serving. It is difficult to maintain a neutral and objective position when one is directly involved with interventions and treatments of students in the district, especially within a business capacity. As the ethics investigation revealed, many have voiced their reservations about the board member operating in this capacity. I'd like to echo their sentiments and provide insight into her dealings at my school, Nellie Muir. I am the case manager for all students K through 3, and often students with behavioral and mental health needs are referred to outside agencies for wraparound services and treatment that would help support their goals in the educational setting. I have one such student who was referred to outside therapy during a team meeting around a threat that this student may have posed. The meeting involved outside agencies, including the county, and referrals to a third-party, non-affiliated therapy practice was communicated. A few weeks later, I was called to escort this particular student back to class from the other side of the school where they typically would never be. When I arrived, I saw the student leaving the behavior specialist/psychologist's office wherein there was an unknown to me adult. I was confused given that I am this student's case manager and was completely unaware of who this adult is and what her business with my student was regarding. I also found it odd that she was utilizing the office space of other employees, given that sensitive information and documentation are stored in that location. Once back to the classroom, I asked the teacher who the student was meeting with and why, and she also didn't know. When I inquired at the office, they seemed unsure of who this adult was and why they were there, nonetheless, pulling my student out of class to work with one-on-one. Later, I found out that the student was meeting with her as a private, outside of the district counselor, whom none of the staff that I spoke to knew about until later. This glaring lack of communication, as well as the supersedence of leveled protocol for treatment services, seems egregious to me. The fact that no information was conveyed to me, the case manager, as well as others on the special education and counseling team about the interventions undertaken with the student is both ineffective as well as troublesome. Also, when I followed up with the student's mother, she had said that she had not yet completed an intake with the neutral outside counseling service agency. Since that was the referral that the special education team had made, it is only sensical that the option of a third-party service addressing the needs of the student should be exhausted before pulling in a private therapist that has a direct ethical conflict. When I spoke to a school counselor about my concerns, she mirrored my contentions and relayed that she spoke to the board member directly about her discomfort over providing private paid treatment to a student. To this, the board member allegedly replied, "Don't worry about it, I have a lot of experience." After this, our school counselor approached others about the issue, including those at the district office level, and was reportedly met with either uncertainty around the situation or ambivalence, seemingly. Our counselor relayed to me that she felt shirked off and that her issues around this provision of service were not heeded or addressed. Experience or not, the potential for financial gain related to students is a conflict of interest for a standing board member. But most glaringly, the biggest issue for me is that the board chair in question's child is in the same class as the student she is providing private counseling services to. There is no way that this can be deemed an appropriate match. The disregard of the student's privacy rights is apparent, and the potential for biased reactions on the part of the board member is great. Later on in a team meeting with a school psychologist, admin, as well as the student's teacher, upon learning that the board member's child was in the same classroom as the counsel's student she is counseling, they were aghast that this would ever be allowed. The lack of communication and transparency, the financial and career gain that the board member stands to acquire, as well as the egregious conflict of interest of their own child being in the same classroom as the client, should not be ignored. I would implore both the board as well as the district as a whole to investigate how this whole setup came to be, as well as actions that can be taken to prevent future ethically dubious situations that are not in the best interest of either the students or the district as a whole. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And moving on to our next item is our budget hearing. So at this time, the board will temporarily set aside any business to conduct a public hearing on the 2024-2025 budget approved by the Budget Committee on May 21, 2024. Do we have any public comment?
Good evening, board members. You have your 2024-2025 approved budget in front of you. As you know, the Budget Committee passed this budget back in May. It is in front of you for your approval tonight during new business. There are, of course, no changes from the proposed budget to the approved budget you see here. It's identical to the one you saw during that meeting.
Is this an opportunity to ask you questions?
Okay,
Or does anybody have any questions? Yeah, I feel like we discussed it thoroughly at our last meeting.
which I appreciate. Thank you. Thank you. You got a lot of info here, so. Thank you so much.
Moving on to item number 5, reports. First, we have board reports, and this is where we get to share as board members, how are we are participating in moving the school mission forward, how we are involved in our schools, and an opportunity to share with each other in our community, how we are engaging in our community. I can go ahead and start first. Well, I think we all attended for some of us, we attended graduation. There were several. There was promotions and high school graduation. And then this last week, I attended a conference for it's the National Association of Latino and elected officials. And it's an opportunity to connect with other Latinos throughout the country at all levels. One, to attend a conference, but also an opportunity to network and engage. That was
As Chair said, got to take part in our first graduation ceremony. It was very exciting. It was a great opportunity to be with the students close up and on their milestone, and to be part of just handing them their diplomas and just to congratulate them personally one by one. So that was very exciting for me. I enjoyed it immensely. Also took part in the senior barbecue prior to the graduation, which was great, just to kind of just be part of the party, if you will, just to kind of connect with them, kind of talk to them to see what their plans were, see what they were doing, see what route they were taking, just to kind of engage with them and whatnot. Also, I went to the site council last week out at Valor. However, there was nobody there. So I don't know if it was canceled or not. So I've been interested in attending those. So I went out, but that one didn't happen. And then just as a community engagement, I went to the Flavor to Football tournament this weekend, just to kind of engage with the, granted my son's on one of the teams, but still engaging with the public was always great and fun, just to kind of see the kids, meet the kids, get to know them. And so that was, it was hot, but it was fun. So, yeah.
So I participated in graduation practice, and that was exciting, helping the students. I went to the morning session and I pretended I was the board and shook hands with everyone across the stage. And then I was with the superintendent and the board for graduation, which was amazing, emotional, exciting, very warm, but not as warm as the people who were out, not underneath the canopy. I felt bad for those guys, but it was, I'll try not to get emotional, but it was amazing watching the kids who had just been really excited and overwhelmed, and the kids who had a lot of attitude all of a sudden be humbled and walk up there. And some of them were actually trembling when they got to us to get their diplomas, and they were just so excited to finally receive it and achieve it, and to have their families so proud of them. And it was just an amazing experience. I mean, it was a really big deal to watch each one of them. And they had such different personalities when they got up there and got it. And then to see the pictures that were posted on the school district website, and to go through them and see their smiles and I just think that the whole experience and the way that it was done very well. It was just amazing from beginning to end. I thought it went very, very well. The district did an amazing job. It went well.
So, Ryan Byer, I'm newly appointed school board member. I've been on the board now for 2 weeks. So essentially the last 2 weeks, I've just been doing a lot of learning and a lot of listening and trying to read as much as I can and get caught up on what it is to be a board member, my responsibility to you all and to my community and to our school and our students. I've been working on establishing our summer schedule because we'll have meetings all summer and we'll have a retreat coming up. I'm registered for an August conference for the Oregon School Boards Association. So that's coming up. And then I also am in site council for Lincoln. And so, but unfortunately our last meeting, just like yours, it was canceled. But really over the last 2 weeks, I'm really just trying to get caught up here. So that's my report.
Okay, next item is from the Office of the Superintendent.
Tonight we'll be joined by Director of Teaching and Learning, Director Chapman, and she'll be providing an overview and an update on the work of the Dual Language Advisory Board. This board was formed back in 2020, and it is composed of staff, parents, who are coming together and doing work to review our dual language program, to make some revisions and continue to update and keep our dual language program healthy and vibrant. So Dr. Chapman will be providing an update on a little bit of that work.
Hi, good evening, Chair Legaspi, Superintendent Larios, and board members. Thank you for having me here tonight. I apologize, I have to join from Zoom. I'm in South Dakota, helping to care for my father who just had surgery. So, yeah, so as Superintendent Larios said, I wanted to, I'll be providing an update on kind of a report of what the Dual Language Advisory Board has done this year and giving you a little recap of kind of where we've been. So the work that the Dual Language Advisory Board did this year really connects to a couple of outcomes on the strategic plan. One is that each student will graduate prepared to pursue college, career options, and success in life, and that they have the opportunity to become bilingual and biliterate, and to foster a culture of engagement and partnerships, that staff will collaborate with families and students to support students' growth. And I'll talk about how the work connected to these two pieces of the strategic plan throughout the report. The district goal that the work most ties to is the one that we had around our students receiving the 5th grade recognition of biliteracy, 8th grade certificate of biliteracy, and 12th grade Oregon State seal of biliteracy or multiliteracy. So our goal this year was to increase the percent of students that receive these recognitions by 10%. And I'm really proud to say that we met this goal this year. And so it was a combination of our 5th grade, 8th grade, and 12th grade students. And so I'm really happy that we met that goal this year. And the part that the Dual Language Advisory Board work most connects with in our instructional framework is the promoting teacher leadership and collaboration. The board is mostly comprised of licensed staff. We've had classified staff in the past. We don't currently have anyone on the board that is part of the classified group. However, I hope that somebody does join in the future, but this is really an opportunity for our staff to take a leadership role, to collaborate, and work on improving our dual language system as a whole. So as Superintendent Larios said, in 2020 is when I first proposed the idea to have this Dual Language Advisory Board and started recruiting staff to join. And so at the time, people filled out applications who were interested in being a part of the board. And we were trying to have a balance of elementary, middle school, high school staff, as well as across the 3 different instructional language models that we have in the district. We also reached out to families to join, classified staff, licensed staff. There's some administrators, and some district level staff that are on the board. And so the first meeting was in January of 2021. And we, at the time, divided into 5 different subcommittees, which are listed here. And those committees met kind of off and on the past few years. This year, those committees did not meet. There was kind of dwindling participation at the end of last year. And so this year, the work focused predominantly just on the whole board working together. And so at the end of last year, the board, we went through a process of identifying what our priorities would be for this current school year. And there are 3 of those listed on the bottom of this slide. And the one that was kind of the main focus for the year was the first one, which was to complete a program evaluation. And so I'll be talking about what that program evaluation looked like. And that also ties with the third priority on here. The second one, unfortunately, we didn't do as much of that as I was hoping this year, but I do anticipate that we'll be able to do more of that this next year. And there was one project that ties a little bit to the second one that that we worked on this year, but I anticipate that that'll be a priority that the board wants to continue with for next year, that second one. So there were 2 main things that the board worked on this year. One was revising the dual language manual. And so we've had a manual that was created before I came into the district. I believe it was in 2017 is when it was written. And it's a very comprehensive manual. It's quite long. And it wasn't very user friendly. And so a subcommittee was formed to start.
Don't let it drip all over you can leave it in there and yeah, and I'll rinse it off. I know I'm trying to leave the meeting. Hold on.
I think you need to mute yourself, Jessica.
Oh,
So a subcommittee of the board formed to work on revising the manual. And one was to make it more inclusive, to include all of the language pathways that are in the district. So looking at like our world language pathways, our English only pathways, newcomer program, English learner services. And so that group's been meeting throughout the year, kind of working on, how to make the manual a little bit more user-friendly and useful and not quite as extensive. And a lot of the pieces that are currently in there will be maintained, but perhaps in like on the website or in an appendix. And something that this group also wanted to do is to create a community handbook that's much more concise and really provides information to families in the community that would be really important to know about the different language pathways that we have in our district and the programming. Instead of, right now it's like a 60-page manual. And so that's not something that a parent or a community member could easily go to and find information that they're looking for. And so this group's continuing to meet this summer and hopefully getting the staff one completed and then kind of mapping out an outline at least for the community one, and hopefully able to finish the community one this summer. But if not, we'll look to do that in the early fall. And one of our language program coordinators who's on the Dual Language Advisory Board is leading that committee, that subcommittee that's working on that. And then the next thing that's been kind of the bigger project for the year is to complete a program evaluation. And so the board has been working with Education Northwest throughout the year. We got a grant from ODE and Oregon State University to help fund this program evaluation that we completed this year. And it was co-created with the board. So Education Northwest came in early in the year, worked with the board to determine like what exactly they wanted to look at. And the board decided that they really wanted to do K-12 classroom observations. And so they co-created an observation tool with Education Northwest that was used during those classroom observations. And those were all conducted by Education Northwest. But now we also have a tool that we can use going forward for professional development or to conduct our own maybe peer observations or training for like onboarding new staff, things like that. Then they also wanted to do an educator survey, which we pushed out to all of our staff. as well as student focus groups, which we did at middle school and high school, and then a family survey. And so those were the 4 components that were included in the program evaluation. We were hoping to also include some family focus groups and look at some post-secondary outcomes to see how students who went through our dual language system, like once they leave, how they're feeling about how prepared they were for post-secondary experiences, like how the dual language program maybe influenced their decisions or has impacted them in a positive way. And so those are 2 things that we hope to do next year to get to get additional information that will help inform our decisions going forward. And so there were some preliminary findings. Education Northwest came and met with the board in June and went over what all of the data that they had compiled from the different pieces, and the board worked together to identify what were some findings or things that we really wanted to focus on moving forward. And so, excuse me, there were 3 different findings. One is that Focus PD is directly tied to goals and relevant to teachers' needs. There were common agreed upon goals and vision are a must in buildings and district level. And this is all the verbiage that the team came up with. And so it'll be compiled into a comprehensive report with really clear next steps and outcomes. And so right now it's just sort of preliminary as indicated here. So it's not in, complete detailed thoughts, but and then some PD focus can be to revisit our goals of the dual language program, expectations for student experience, a focus on language scaffolding, looking at providing some designated time for teachers to plan their content language objectives. That was something that came up at the June 4th meeting. And then setting a goal to link learning to students' past, present, and future lives. And so really connecting the learning that students are doing to their lives. And bringing a focus on getting to know the whole student. And so these were some of the areas that the board identified as some areas of focus moving forward. So for next steps, Education Northwest will take all of the data that they collected this year. They've got, professionals who this is what they do is they're the word I'm looking for. I can't think of the word, but basically they'll analyze all of the data and compile it into a comprehensive report. They'll take the feedback from the board that was on the last slide, and they'll put it into a final report that they will share with us in August. And then moving forward, we will have the ability to complete annual self-evaluations to really see how we're doing on implementing the goals that we set forth within that final report, and the implementation of our dual language system. The self-report will allow us to continually monitor that and improve our systems. And so then the other priorities that were identified at the end of last year will definitely be something that I take to the board to see if they want to continue focusing on those for this next year. I anticipate the answer will be yes. That third one, some of that will come from the report that we get from this program evaluation that we completed this year. And so I think there's one more slide, I believe, Jenny. So this is what the Dual Language Advisory Board put together a couple of years ago around what the profile of a student is that goes through our dual language system. And so it's broken into kind of the 3 pillars of dual language, which is bilingualism and biliteracy, high academic achievement, and sociocultural competence. And so this is what we really want for our students. And I'm hoping that through the work that the Dual Language Advisory Board is doing, that we will be able to accomplish all of these intended outcomes for our students.
Thank you for that presentation. Do we have questions or discussion from board members?
I'm just going to add something real quickly from what Director Chapman spoke about and what achieving of that goal around the students earning the state seal by literacy and the being on track to it at 5th grade and in 8th grade. I think there are a couple of our board members who attended the seal ceremony at the high school about a month ago, and it was really amazing and really proud to see the number of students who are demonstrating high academic language proficiency in English plus a second language was just phenomenal, and that number is continuing to go up and up, and to reach that goal just shows the dedication and the hard work of our educators to support dual language and the development in our students. So I was really proud of that.
I do have a question. Where it says final report, will that be completed by August? Can you clarify?
Yes, Education Northwest will finish that and provide it to us in August.
And so will this committee continue to meet next year?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Did you ask if they'll continue to meet next year?
Correct.
Yes, yeah, this is an ongoing group that I anticipate we'll always have. And if yeah, we are continually looking for new members. Right now we have a pretty good number of about 20 to 25 people. And we have a board member on there. But we will continue to look for additional members, like I mentioned, classified staff. We have a couple of parents right now. But yes, this is an ongoing group that meets every year.
Thank you. Like we can, thank you again, Chrissy, for that presentation, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
To our next item, school resource officer update. Superintendent Larios.
So in your board packets tonight, you find about, I think might be the shortest board report that I remember seeing. It's a single slide, but it's an important update to provide to the board and to our community about where we are with our school resource officers. This last year, we had 2 resource officers. Moving into next year, we're continuing to maintain that strong partnership that exists between the city and the school district and the police department, and maintaining those 2 resource officers. Their work really is focused on preventative measures, building positive relationships, contributing to the climate and the culture that exists in the schools, increasing the capacity to provide parent, student, staff trainings, building those positive relationships with students, and taking a real preventative measure to try to get out in front of things and keep things from happening. They also contribute and are part of the school, the youth service team, and that's a multi-agency group that comes together and looks at the needs of some of our neediest students in the district, and develops some wraparound supports for those students. And they continue to work really closely with our schools to prepare for emergency situations. So we're maintaining those school resource officers into next year and maintaining that strong partnership that exists with the city and with our police department.
Thank you. And I do want to add to the one slide, as Superintendent Leiters and I were discussing this topic, I don't recall a report on school resource officers in the past. And so I just thought, this is also an opportunity to discuss as a board, should the board want a report next year, what you would like to see on a report for next time. So I also want to mention that the city sees an importance in supporting school resource officers on campus. They are the ones who fund most of these 2 positions. And so, one, I really like to see I see the city really saying, hey, this is important. We are here to support our schools, and we are here not only to state that we support it, but also that we are here willing to invest in our schools as well.
One is primarily at the high school, and the other is mostly at the middle school, but they are responsive and are available to support all schools. No, not readily available, but that, you know, what I heard board chair mention was that it might be something that the board might be interested in hearing in a future report.
So one of the community presentations that I attended was combined schools with both middle schools, French Prairie and Valor, where they did present, and I would say it was specifically to parents and families, and it was either close to or over 200 parents in attendance.
Yeah, the role of the resource officer is not to engage, not to be a part of the school's discipline. They're there for different reasons. So like I think what we might be speaking to is like that range of continuum of support and continuum of consequences, which our school resource officers are not a part of. That's not their role in being a part of this the partnership in the schools. Is not discipline. That's the work of the administration.
Any other thoughts, discussion around this topic?
Their role, yeah, is that building that pro-social, I apologize for interrupting, but yet that purpose of building that pro-social skills and relationship and being a positive influence on students, on youth.
I think I agree with the whole report thing because if I recall, about 2 years ago, we had this whole discussion and there's certain few that were, rebutting against the whole school resource officer topic, and we had the surveys done, the community spoke that they wanted it, and obviously for positive reasons. But, if I recall correctly again, there was comparisons with Chicago and Los Angeles and big cities and whatnot. And it's like, no, this is Woodburn. And I think a report would really help solidify how of an effect of positivity that it would have on Woodburn in regards to our schools, not trying to compare to other places, but just to see how a positive effect it would have here, in regards to numbers, whether, just off the top of my head, just what kind of incidents they were able to be involved in preventative measures, not necessarily like discipline, but, anything that may have risen to criminal elements. Things that they were able to address in however the process would go with SROs and whatnot. Community engagement, school engagement, administrative engagement, training engagement, and just to kind of show the community that, hey, this is actually a positive thing and not, be influenced by other things, and that it can be a very positive thing.
Yeah, we could hold on to that idea as we start to develop our calendar for next year at the retreat. I wanted to hold on to that idea, and we could keep that in mind as we start to develop the board calendar at the retreat and start to identify reports.
And I also want to mention, like, this process, I don't remember when it was, but it was a lengthy process when I was part of the committee. I want to say it was about 18 months, maybe a year and a half or so, from beginning to end. We had a couple board members on the committee. We included many stakeholders. The district attorney also attended, along with other individuals from various levels from the county. And this is a resource that our community and our parents said, we want this in our schools. And so here we are providing that in response to that. And also, who knows, maybe in the future, there's an opportunity to reassess, and maybe we review those results, and maybe we make different decisions. But as of now, and based on surveys and the process, our parents and those who were a part of the process said this is a service that we want in our schools.
And maybe we'll get more information if there is some sort of reporting or data, but do we have any sense of 2 is sufficient? 2 resource officers? Is there a need for more? Is there a need for less? I think that would be something that I'd like to see data to make those types of decisions.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful to be thinking about that. What does the data tell us? And that's making some data-driven decisions on that question.
So one of our officers at the middle school level, he shared between the middle school. So ideally, it would be great if we had a full-time at each school. But that is a great question to seek data for that, to make an informed decision. Other thoughts or discussion around this topic? Okay, now, if we can move forward. For confirmation items. So the confirmation items are presented as follows. Meeting minutes of May 14th, special meeting, May 28th, 2024, regular board meeting, personnel report, surplus property disposals, acceptance of gifts and donations. Do we have any questions? We do not have any questions about the confirmation items presented.
I make a motion to adopt the confirmation items as presented.
All in favor of adopting the confirmation items as presented, please say aye. Motion carries 5-0 votes. Board action items, we have old business. We have a policy update for a second reading.
Well, tonight in your board packet, you'll see many policies. These policies were the ones that we spent a significant amount of time reviewing at the work session, at the last work session. So what you see in your packet tonight is the language that was selected and discussed at that work session time. And so tonight it's coming back ready for adoption. And that's what you'll see in your packet tonight, the policies reflecting the language and the discussion from the work session.
So we did go through each of these at length this last meeting. Do we have any questions or discussion around some of these items?
Sorry, for clarity, are we on page 31 of updated policies here?
Yes.
Okay.
31, so what I did is I listed the ones that have the revisions at the top, the updates.
Mhm.
And then the bottom is a list of proposed deletions.
Yep.
And then there's the proposed new adopted ones on top.
And these are all the ones that we went through previously, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So only, I will clarify, we were missing in the last packet, the JHCCF, the head lice policy. So OSBA hadn't sent an update one, so it's in here now. And in essence, I'll let you know what page. It's on page 163. So that is the proposed policy to update.
Okay, we did talk about head lice, and so what was not here that is here now?
I was looking at both policies and they're in essence the same, except for they're proposing to delete where it's referencing the National Association of School Nurses statement at the bottom. If you look at policy that is right on the next page, 164, that's what they're proposing to delete. And then 163 is what they're proposing to adopt. Sorry, I don't know the microphone today. And they're both the same, except for that bottom reference at the bottom.
Of the legal reference?
That's what's being deleted. Yeah, in 2018, when this policy was proposed, there was 3 versions. This is the policy that the board at that time adopted. And this is still the same version that's being proposed by OSBA.
So given that we've discussed and asked questions about this policy update, if we have no further questions, can I entertain a motion? It appears we might have some questions. Do we have questions from the person?
So from my understanding, a lot of the changes were due to legislative updates. And then a lot of the other changes where they were just combining certain sections, certain policies. So from my understanding, I didn't see a lot of changes that would require a lot of changes to any of the policy. They seemed fairly consistent.
Correct.
That's correct. So if we're ready for a motion.
Do you have any questions, Courtney?
Could you, hot mic, I don't know what the deal is. It's just- Could you talk to me about, I can't find the page, but I think it's 75. Oh, thank you. Page 75, suspected abuse of a child reporting requirements. What was the change to this?
I have to go back and look at what the
Original?
original one, because we spent quite a bit of time going through these last time and pointing out the different language change. And so I don't have the, what's in the packet tonight is the selected language that the board already discussed. So we have to go back and look at last month's packet to take a look at what was different.
So I do see some words in bold. Is that what maybe was changed? Any child, any person? Did it maybe not say any child before?
So it used
It
to be
did.
that, it did.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Director Christie. So again, this is the language that was selected by the board at the work session, and so bringing it back ready for adoption. Recommending adoption.
I make a motion to adopt the new policy update, the second reading, as presented after thorough review.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yeah, I second.
All in favor of adopting the policy update, second reading as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Next item on our agenda is new business. Superintendent evaluation. And what I have here is I'm going to read a summary of the superintendent evaluation. Superintendent evaluation 2024, Juan Larios, Woodburn School District 103. The Board of Directors of the Woodburn School District has completed the annual evaluation of Superintendent Juan Larios for 2023-24 school year. 3 board members have served on the board for at least 1 full year and have been able to observe and be a part of the successes achieved this year. The evaluation focused on 8 professional standards. Regarding the 8 professional standards, we determined that Superintendent Larios' performance received an average rating and had effective performance in the areas of visionary leadership, inclusive district culture, culturally responsive instructional leadership, effective organizational management, effective financial management and policy, governance, and advocacy. In the area of ethics and professional norms and communication and community relations, the board felt his performance was strong. We will be working with Superintendent Larios over the next several weeks to develop goals for the superintendent, align with our district goals, and look forward to working together to continue the success of our district. so do we make a motion for that? So if there are no discussion, I would entertain a motion to adopt the summary as presented.
I make a motion to, sorry, any questions? I'll make a motion. So I make a motion to, move forward with this evaluation for, Superintendent Juan Larios.
Is there a second? I second. Thank you. Any discussion? So all in favor of adopting the superintendent evaluation 2024 for Superintendent Larios as presented, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries a 5-0 vote. You need a signature. The next item, we have the 2024-2025 budget.
Hello again, board members. You have the budget resolution in front of you. This is a reflection of the approved budget from the budget committee. This is the packaging, if you may, that has to be approved in order for us to spend starting July 1. And it's my recommendation that you approve the 2024-2025 approved budget.
So again, with the budget, we have, I think, had 2 meetings with the budget committee to discuss and ask questions and go over the budget for the 2024-2025 school year.
So in the special revenue fund, the
Mhm.
transfers, that transfers of, students, or is that just transfer of funds?
Transfer of funds. Mhm. That's to pay for, that comes out of the high school success grant to pay for the CTE wing at the high school.
When we make a motion, do we need to read each of these resolutions?
This is the one, yes, where you have to read the whole thing. I apologize.
And do we?
You don't have to read the numbers within here, just the words, if that makes sense.
We do these one by.
You can do it all in one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one motion with the resolution.
Is that on, is that in here?
What's that?
Is that in here? Is it
Starting
the
at the
first one?
top,
That's
then.
correct. When interested in making a motion?
The whole thing,
The whole thing, right?
whole thing.
All the be it resolved.
Yep.
Not a motion for each.
Just one singular, correct.
To adopt.
Cool. Okay, let's just do that. So I make a motion to adopt resolution number 24-002, resolution adopting the budget. Be it resolved that the Board of the Woodburn School District hereby adopts the budget for fiscal year 2024-2025 in the total amount of $128,771,975. This budget is now on file at 1390 Meridian Drive in Woodburn, Oregon. Resolution making appropriations. Be it resolved that the amounts shown below are hereby appropriated for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024 for the following purposes as listed below. Resolution imposing the tax. Be it resolved that the following ad valorem property taxes are hereby imposed upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the district for tax year 2024 and 2025. Subsection 1, at the rate of 4.5247 per $1,000 of assessed value for permanent rate tax. Subsection 3, in the amount of $6,262,457,000 for debt service on general obligations bonds. Resolution categorizing the tax. Be it resolved that the taxes imposed are hereby categorized for purposes of Article 11, 10, 9, 11, that's right. Section 11B as subject to the education limitation, permanent rate tax of 4.5247 per $1,000, excluded from limitation, general obligation bond debt service, $6,262,457, and ending fund balance, commitments, and policies. Ending fund balance assignments. Be it resolved that in compliance with GASB 54, the authority to classify portions of the ending fund balance be granted to the superintendent and the director of business. Spending as it relates to ending fund balance policy. The board of directors considers the spending of the restricted classification of fund balance on purposes for which such funds can be used to occur first when funds are spent for restricted and unrestricted purposes. When unrestricted classification of fund balances are spent, the board will consider that committed amounts will be reduced first, followed by assigned amounts and then unassigned amounts. Authority. The board of directors reserves the authority to establish and modify commitments of ending fund balance. The above resolution statements were approved and declared adopted on June 25th of 2024.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there a second? That was a motion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the motion.
Yeah, I second.
After all
You don't have
that.
to repeat everything. Thank you, Ryan. And as mentioned in the previous budget committees, I just want to make it clear that my company does have a contract with the Woodburn School District. So I'm declaring a potential conflict of interest. However, according to the Oregon Ethics Commission, I can discuss the budget and I can vote on the budget for the 2024-2025 school year. So then now we'll vote, right? And now, all in favor of adopting the budget for the 2024-2025 school year, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 vote. Thank you all. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And item number 3 under board action items is the policy update, first reading, JFCA, student dress and grooming.
So back in April, the board engaged in an opportunity to collect feedback from staff, from students, and from families in response to concerns with the dress code. So you see tonight in your packet is a draft. This is first reading. It's not for adoption. It's here for discussion and potential revisions to the dress code policy to address those concerns that were brought forward.
So something that I do want to share is that I did consult with OSBA and had a lengthy conversation regarding the dress code. And so one thing that was recommended, and maybe something that we can think about as a board, is one, I know that, you know, this is a policy that, you know, there's individuals who will support it, who will not support it. And so my thought around, you know, perhaps we can adopt this, but also thinking about, like, you know, having a committee that includes all stakeholders, 9 or 10 individuals, to maybe review this, and then bring something to the board where then we can say, you know, we had others involved in this process, those who are for it, those who are against it, and just have those different voices heard before we make a final decision on this. I know it's something that we want to decide and implement for next year, and we see that as something that we'd like to do. But in kind of reflecting on this and just conversations with OSBA and how we include stakeholders in the different process, I would feel comfortable if we included some sort of committee that would have a say in this policy. A one-time committee. You mean like to meet once? Right, I think that would include the voice of Superintendent Barrios and what that committee, based on his experience, what that would look like. Would that be a committee at each school? That would be including the voice of the superintendent. I mean, I don't have all the details. Those are just, that's something that we can discuss as to what that would look like.
Well, like,
There is a, it's going to show there is a policy around the committees that the board could utilize, and you have copies. It might be helpful.
Actually, two. Those, both of those go to one person.
I'll just pass this down.
So we did put out a survey to parents and staff and community in regards to the dress code and concern.
Correct.
And possibly implementing a uniform, which, you know, there's many opposition from the staff, but parents were for it, but then there was also concern because the cost of it and management and overseeing it. And we do want, it is a safety matter as well. It can be a destructive issue in the school. So,
Was it a committee that changed it to what it is now?
There was I would, you know, maybe refer to it more as a student task force that was organized, that brought forward recommendations of the language change.
So, you know, at the high school, there's already 4 committees that the principal and the admin team is. There's already 4 committees that the admin team is working on.
Is there a possibility they could just add one more to their existing? At the last site council meeting, they reviewed the 4 committees that they're working on, tardies, absences, and 2 others were hot topics. One of them was, fights or any kind of violence. And I forgot what the 4th one was. But I'm wondering if this is something that the administration could take on at the building level versus that maybe if it's not, is this an issue at the grade schools? The dress code?
Or whatever gets adopted would be impacting
Right.
all levels.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like the cell phone issue is going to be handled at the high school at the building level. That's it. That's the 4th thing, the cell phone. So I'm wondering about if the dress code is a concern at Woodburn High School and they plan to address those, other 4 things. Is this something that maybe that they could handle at a building level and talk about more of an assertive campaign to address the issues that are happening there if there's been concerns that it's not been working, and the other middle schools could work cohesively towards whatever issues they have, together.
We provided the 2 policies because this is where the board's authorization lies. You don't have authorization on what administrators implement at their building level as far as committees. If the board wants to establish a committee, we have to follow public meeting laws. And so that's why we provided these policies, because you would have one or the other, but you don't really have the authority to say, oh, we want this advisory committee at the high school only.
Right.
It would have to be implemented in this kind of capacity.
Right, but what I heard from the surveys was that the high school administration as well as administration at the middle schools are concerned, and from staff there as well.
That's correct.
Mhm.
But we also have parents at the elementary level.
Oh, elementary level as well?
So at all levels.
Oh, I didn't know
So
about.
having a committee that represents district-wide,
Mm-hmm.
kind of maybe stakeholders for or against, or even those interested in uniforms, so that we have a voice
Mm-hmm.
in areas, perspectives.
So do you feel like the survey wasn't a strong enough voice for us to get an understanding of what the
I think it is.
stakeholders want?
I mean, it's helpful, but
Mhm.
also when I reviewed this policy, I'm trying to figure out what's the difference between this and our current policy.
Okay.
And also given that the school code, the dress code can be a hot topic, when something comes from outside voices outside of us, it's something that's coming from the community, it's coming from parents, it's coming from all stakeholders. And when we decide and vote on it, to me, I can say, yes, I voted on something that came from all voices. So that's my take on that.
Just for clarity, and I apologize, I haven't been at some previous meetings, but has this been brought up in public comment at a board meeting? People concerned with the dress code during the public comment period? Do we know how many?
If, let me clarify, is the question like, have we heard public comment specific to the dress code?
Yeah.
I don't recall, but this was first introduced to the board at April board meeting, looking at the feedback that was collected. We did. Okay. this policy is the first time it's being, this draft policy is the first time it's being introduced to the public.
Okay.
So if I recall, there was a couple comments, but I think the majority of the concerns came from outside the meetings in conversations with parents and whatnot, being approached and just, you see it on the community page. And so that kind of just started the whole conversation, the concerns about, and then also the concerns about gang fights and gang affiliations and the fear that kids were feeling about gang clothing, about, interrupting and interfering with school because they were too scared to go to school. They were intimidated by the clothing. And then, in other instances, clothing worn by other students that were very distracting. So there was this whole plethora of information received outside of this meeting. And so that's where the conversation began.
So we have to be cautious sometimes when we receive information that's outside of the meeting, because we have to be thinking about what's the information that's being presented to the entirety of the board.
That was my point, I guess, is that if when, I guess when I go to chapter 7 of our board packet, it talks about there's a difference between taking in complaints privately outside of board meetings versus inside board meetings when they're entered in the public record during the public comment. And so I'm just wondering, should we be considering these complaints that are coming into private board members during private conversations rather than brought up at public meetings during the public comment period?
So they have come up in public meetings. They've also come up in, I've attended middle school parent forums. So it has come up.
Okay.
And in visiting schools, nobody needs to comment. You can see it as a school board member.
I just want to correct something that I said. That's a misstatement. It was actually in March is when it first came forward to the board. And there was a public comment that was provided in March, not April, but in March.
I guess it's just, from what I've looked at, it seems like our legal counsel has generally been against it and thinks that they open us up to legal exposure. From the surveys, it seems like the staff and the faculty are against it. And it seems like the students are against it as well. And it seems like it's some of the parents that where this is really stemming from what I've been able to see. It seems like that's the majority's from the parents, but where our legal counsel, the teachers and the students think that our current policy is adequate.
And where are you getting this information from?
I'm looking through the responses from, I'm looking at the dress code policy survey comments and then I'm also have been reading through this document here that talks about, some of the comments are, this is impossible to enforce. We don't have the staff. It's a huge undertaking.
And which document are you reading?
Oh, I'm sorry. The survey results. And well, this is in addition to just changing the policy. Right. So,
This one was, yeah, this is in April.
anyways,
This-
those are just some of my observations.
And in consultation with OSBA, they support the school board changing the dress code based on concerns that we have here within our school district. But I also see that you are reading OSBA's school board member manual.
And I guess I just want to be cautious of when we're making board decisions based on private conversations. That's something that I think we all need to be cautious of.
Are we making decision, anybody here making a decision based on private conversation?
Or guiding policy based on private conversations.
Can you share more about that? Not who, but like, how are we doing that?
Oh, I guess when it was brought up that, I guess I asked, where are we hearing these things? And Santiago said, Walmart or you know, whenever we're out and about in the public. And I just don't know if that's an appropriate place to be taking in these comments.
To listening to, help me understand.
Okay. So it says here that when a citizen complains, we should suggest that that parent take the matter to the school principal or to the superintendent. And then we're not supposed to investigate complaints or allegations, and we should just bring it to the board and do it here. So
Yes.
that's I guess that's just my
Right.
comment
So,
of,
so I think that's what we have done. I can speak for myself. If there are concerns, those are communicated to the district office.
okay.
I guess I would just like more, I'm a little confused.
Yeah, it just sounds like we're getting complaints during private conversations and interactions where that might be just from a few folks and not representing the larger community.
And I think that's where some of it stemmed from, though. The comments we got is in those conversations, you're like, well, this is the process. And so some of those public comments have stemmed from that. And because we get comments, that's where we get some of the concerns, and we're able to discuss it because we refer them to the process, like you stated.
Sure.
And so that's where we're able to get the ball rolling, because we able to get the discussion going and take the parents' concerns into consideration and go from there.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I wasn't a part of some of those previous conversations and previous comments from during the public comment periods, but
Yeah, no,
just wanted to make sure.
Any other thoughts? Questions?
So do you not feel like we've received enough information from our stakeholders? Or do you feel like we need to form the committee so that we have the buy-in from?
Probably a combination of everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you feel like if we form a subcommittee, that they would be able to get enough information, get together and meet and facilitate what they need to do to make a proposal to the board based on surveying or get enough information, gleaning enough information with school being out in order to make a recommendation before the new year starts?
So it would be maybe also just analyzing a bit more the results. And it would also be following the committee policy here. So if you have people who are going to serve on that committee, they're committed to the process.
And so following the committee process here, are you talking about a board committee or the advisory committee to the board, or either one?
That would be a decision that the board makes.
I see. Do we have any documentation that demonstrates, I think I've asked this before. But do we have any documentation that demonstrates any kind of data in regard to gang dressing, dress code violations at any school, any numbers, referrals, calls home, anything like that, that can tell us what the real numbers are at each school?
We have information around the gang, how many students have been put on like those gang plan contracts or just support plans for students who have been identified as being affiliated or to gang membership.
Because they wore gang colors and dressed like gang.
Well, because the administrator investigated a concern that was brought forward and determined that there was a violation of the district gang secret society policy.
But not because they broke the dress code.
not in isolation of that. It would have to be with, paired with the secret society gang policy.
Okay. So we don't know, for example, how many students at Valor may have received referrals for violating the dress code, period.
I don't have that data.
Okay.
Superintendent Larios, do you have any suggestions on?
Well, yeah, I have there's a couple of different options. The board can, take this as first reading and then, bring it back at a future meeting for second, or go down the road of creating an advisory committee. And then that would be some other board decisions around creating the parameters for that advisory committee. So it's kind of the board's perspective or prerogative on how to proceed next.
Any thoughts from board members as to our next step?
I agree with your suggestion in regards to advisory committee, because then it does involve a voice from the staff and parents and other community members. So then they do have some opinion or their thoughts in the final draft of this dress code policy. But then we'd have to reach out to each site and see if they're willing to participate in the committee.
Yeah, there's language in the advisory committee. That's the direction that the board chooses to move into around the appointment process and some of the guidelines that the board need to follow.
With any of these two policies, does it give the superintendent the opportunity to create a committee?
Not these policies, no.
We went the route of advisory committee, there'd be a deadline because, and would this be something we would want to implement prior to, so there's a deadline.
Well, that would be something that the board would set.
Sorry, what was the other option? You mentioned, what was the first option?
Well, the first option is to take this, what was in the packet tonight as a first reading. It's not too significantly different than what the current policy is. But to take this as a first reading and then bring it back for a second reading at a later date for adoption, giving opportunity for feedback and public comment on what's in here tonight.
Okay.
Kind of like we've done with the other policies.
Does it appear doable for either of these two options for committees to meet and bring something forth to the school district before the school year begins?
To do it over the summer, it would be very challenging to do before the start of the school year, to create an advisory committee to collect the voices and have in place before the start of the school year would be very challenging.
Just want to add, just the process of the board setting what the parameter and what you're asking this committee to do, how you're going to collect applications or like what that would look like needs to be decided on. And then setting meeting dates, because this is a public meeting, we would need to do this similar setup. I would need to attend, take minutes, archive, and then have the Zoom availability. So it'd be a public meeting, similar to how you're meeting here. Just in my professional opinion, it would at least take at least 30 days to set up just the process. And then if you want a short timeline, you would need at least 2 to 3 months for the committee to actually meet, depending on how many times you would want. But in my opinion, if you want this done, and I think the board has had a few committees. One in particular was the Bond Oversight Committee. That was the last body that the board had. And that they met for 3 to 5 years. And we had people kind of rotate into that committee. And same thing, there was a application process. There was kind of like a policy on like what it is that they needed to do, and then they would report it back to the board. Or they actually had a sitting board member on there or two, and then those 2 board members would report back to the board. So it just depends on how July, August is hard to get people together.
So what happens if tonight we make this our first reading and then we accept public comment? And then based on the information that we glean from the public, we decide that we would like to make revisions to this. What's the next step?
That's the usual process that's followed for policy. So the next step would be then to like make this public, provide an opportunity for public comment at the next board meeting. You could be intentional, really intentional about it, and let people know, like, hey, here's what it is. We're seeking out public comment on it. If you want to be more specific. Oh yeah, before adopting anything like that, I would and taking back that feedback and then running it by legal.
Noemi, I would like to know just more about your conversation with the school board and their support of this. So like,
Well, they're not it's not, I can't say that they're in support of it. It was just a conversation. It was consultation.
Okay.
Around including stakeholders. in the
oh, I see.
process.
Okay.
And as mentioned, this first reading is not very different from our current.
It's really not.
So if that's the case, why would we be adopting something? Is it addressing the concerns? If it's very similar, is it addressing the concerns that have come up in the results?
And I agree. It's not much different from our current policy. And so I do like the idea of moving it towards a public comment period, taking the public comment, making what changes we think, and then moving it towards that policy adoption without the committee.
I agree.
I disagree still, but there's 4 of you.
I do notice that this draft doesn't speak to under clothing.
But I don't know that that was part of the survey results.
I don't.
So when you fully analyze the results, is this addressing the overall results? And this is very similar to our current dress code. So that tells me that it's likely not, since it's very similar to our current dress code.
Did our current dress code say clothing, jewelry, tattoos, emblems, badges, symbols, signs, and other things which are evidence of membership or affiliation in a gang?
It does not say that specifically, but this is very similar to our current dress code.
Well, A and B are similar. And the thing is that if they wear inappropriate clothes, there's no process or procedure of how, what actions to be taken, you know? And this problem is mainly at the middle school and the high school, not as at the grade school.
Well, parents at all levels are asking for a dress code change. So if this policy is adopted, how is this different from our current? Like, what would we tell our families? What's the difference between our current policy and this policy?
And it probably won't resolve the problem.
Well, then you have to identify what the current problem is, and then that's what you address in your policy. Right, and I feel like that's addressed here. If you're going to create this and you're going to present it as public comment, you want to make sure that you are pleasing your audience, which is our stakeholders. You want the policy to reach the parents, the stakeholders. I mean, this is about the students, so consider your audience.
Sorry, and how's the school district defining gang? I just pulled up the secret society gang policy, and gangs is defined as a group of the group that identifies itself through the use of name, unique appearance, or language, including hand signs, the claiming of geographical territory, or the exposing of a distinctive belief system that frequently results in criminal activity or disruptive or disorderly conduct.
But then they also wear certain colors and for sports attire that it associates with their group or club or secret society.
So Superintendent Ladders, if I can ask, based on what we've added here and based on this, do you feel like this addresses our current concerns?
I don't know. If we define what I think we need clarity on what is the concern. Is it gang? Then we just grab that gang language and drop it into the dress code.
I think that was the primary concern, how I understood it. But also I know that this is where I think legal said it was really iffy. But the other concerns that was also brought up was how the girls were dressing and distracting in regards to the skin inappropriateness, or however you define inappropriateness.
Boys.
What's that?
Girls and boys.
Girls and boys. And so I think those were the two issues that were brought up, but more so gangs because of the effect it was having. Okay, both were having effect, but more so gangs were having effect. And I think that was the major one that we were focusing on, was the gang issue. Given the violence, given the bullying, given the intimidation just by the clothing based. And so I think that's the one that we were focusing on, just to your point.
And a suggestion might be to grab that language I just read about what a gang is and like add it under C.
I would say that'd be a fair suggestion.
Well, that resolves the dress code issue.
Well, that would be the goal.
That'd be,
Right.
I don't know that we would know.
But that's only one problem, the gang wear, but then the inappropriate attire. Where doesn't it kind of blend into?
That's where it becomes difficult because the word inappropriate is really ambiguous, and it means different things to different people.
And then it's like the freedom of choice
area. Because then we're stepping on that.
Well, and that's why you have to get very specific about what is acceptable. So if we say, if you define gang and what is gang, and it's very clear here.
My personal opinion, I think at this point, I think gangs would be the issue. I think it's more prevalent
Yes.
and more of a hot issue than the distraction of girls' attire at this point because of what it carries, you know, and I don't want to say consequences, but what there is that goes with it. You know, it does affect kids' education. It does affect kids' morale. It does affect, you know, the kids themselves that are involved or potentially involved in gangs. So I think there's more weight to this issue than there is and I think a lot of parents in regard to the girls, I think parents don't like it just because of the fact that that's not the way a girl should dress, you know, given our community and their stances. And I think, so yeah. So as far as what we're looking at, I think it has a lot more weight than that at this point. So I think in this, where we're at and what we're trying to address and we're trying to, like Nami said, the goal, I think that's what we need to focus on at this point. Because, you know, we try to kill two birds with one stone. We're going to start stepping into the legal aspects of it and really put it out there and really put ourselves at risk, if you will. And
Well, I think the number one thing is that we want the students to be in school.
yeah,
And you don't want a list of you can, you can't, you can, you can't, you can't. And the thing is safety, that we're all about safety. And so we want the students to feel safe. And so with Superintendent Lario's definition of gang, I think it's a really good idea to, list
Reference.
exactly what it is, that if you put, you shall not wear, anything affiliation with a gang, and then affiliation with a gang may be defined as, and then right there, because that is not tolerated either, and that is already in the handbook. There is none of that as well. So, and I mean, that's a safety hazard, disorderly, all of that is not welcome on any campus anywhere. So, and, and again, if it's just going to be, presented, we could do the same thing, and seek public comment, and people will have an opportunity to respond. And if they're unhappy with us saying that we have zero tolerance for gang activity or any of the other things that come with it, then it would be good to hear that. Today, you can add that gang language that we saw.
Yeah, we could do that.
Any thoughts around that?
I think it's great.
I think the gang topic is already covered on our existing policies of number 1 and number 2. It is a safety hazard. It is distracting students. And so I feel like it's already covered in our existing policy.
What about when the kids are wearing? Crips and Bloods. So, we have these kids that are wearing all red and all blue, and they come like a serpentine through the hall. There's like maybe 50 to 70 that might be wearing red, and then they form, and the other ones are wearing blue, and they separate in the hall. And you have to stop that and say, we're not going to have half you wearing red and blue and like antagonizing each other. And one kid's lifting up his shirt and he's showing off his belt buckle, and it says his gang name on it. It says like Hobbs, Crips, Bloods.
I mean, that sounds like a safety hazard.
Yeah, it sounds like a clear violation.
Right.
of the-
But
the
to
pol-
be,
the
I
secret
mean,
society gang policy.
but if they're all doing it, then you've got like, I mean, definition is gonna help.
Sure, defining number one and number two even more.
Mhm. I think that's gonna,
I also don't want to, I also want to be aware, are we disproportionately and unequally targeting our Latino male community? Or staff, or students? Just because somebody may be a Latino wearing a certain color does not mean they're in a gang. And so we need to be careful of that.
But if it's a group of them, then they're identifying as a secret society.
Well, yeah, and that's why I will ask for clarification on what actually is considered to be a gang, so. It's hard.
So if the gang language is in this dress code, does the investigation be conducted?
Well, somebody still needs to determine that it is gang related. I think what Courtney described is clear, they're naming it, and that if there's a suspicion, it still needs to be investigated to be concluded, is it or is it not?
So then, does that language need to be in here for parents who are reading it? No? You know the difference between, like, for example, like what you shared, as opposed to just reading a safety hazard? And it sounds like maybe that's what our community does need.
So what I'm hearing is to bring that language of that defines gang and drop it into this dress code.
have you seen anyone else define gang in theirs? Is it
Other district
necessary?
policies?
Because I haven't. Right.
But that would be more a metro area where that would be.
We've looked at, I mean, I've looked at a lot of different policies, even schools that have pretty serious problems. Portland, I've not seen anybody define it.
Any clear policy on that?
Just the secret society thing.
Yeah. Because then when we say gang, then like Ryan says, then
We're saying we got a problem.
yeah, we're identifying a certain race and group as specifically of that kind.
It's not necessarily with Latino because, like I said, I work in the youth corrections. Hobbs, 18th Street, Crip Bloods are not just Latinos.
They're not.
They're everybody. And so I think, but this day and age, that's the mindset. Oh, that's it's just this group. It's not. And I think that's where we got to try to make it clear that, yeah, it's gangs. And it's, I mean, granted, our community is the majority Latino. We've got to make it clear that, yeah, even though there's not really what you would consider many white gang members, that's the possibility that there is. It's not just defining that group. So,
Thanks for that clarification.
yeah, that makes sense.
And I wonder also, speaking to your comment about disproportionate, I mean, given that our student population is over 80% Latino, how would that be? Right.
I just think from a legal standpoint, we have to be careful about singling out individuals based on some vague terminologies.
Right, and that's why we have legal, that they would review this policy before. And again, as needed.
That's to future data or public comment.
Well, I think the question is if we want to add that gang language to our next, open it up to public comment. And public comment would be if somebody reviews the agenda and they see it on there, but it doesn't mean that everybody will have access to viewing the agenda and see it on there to provide public comment.
You know that there's part of the community here that would, encourages involvement, so maybe that would be another aspect. The word would get out.
What would that look like?
I don't know, it depends on what they would do.
What do you mean who? I don't understand.
The teachers union, they encourage public comment and
Yeah, what our outreach efforts look like for trying to get public comments to review
It
address
would be
policy.
similar like any other public comments. I don't believe that we can go and advertise.
It's not our practice, not to say that the board couldn't, but it's not been practice. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that would be a good thing, though.
That's why we sent the survey to get, to
Sure.
gather that feedback. Actually, there was already that response.
Which part?
the secret society verbiage, language.
What do you think about that, Mason?
Well, I already agree with that.
Oh, okay. Martin,
What's the question?
do you agree with?
Implementing the secret society language into policy, be more specific.
I would need you to read it to me.
The definition
So after the word gang,
is defined as a group that identifies itself through the use of a name, unique appearance, or language, including hand signs, the claiming of geographical territory, a distinctive belief system that frequently results in criminal activity or disruptive and disorderly conduct.
I'd say no.
What part?
I think it's just too much, maybe, and so is the process, my understanding is that when someone goes on a gang contract, are they identified by the Woodburn Police Department?
No, they're identified by their school administrator, who has used that policy to determine that they are displaying a unique appearance or language or something from the definition of the gang.
Would the police department only get involved in criminal elements though?
There might be some, there might be some instances where the police are involved because there could be behaviors that happen outside of school as well that have led a student to be identified.
Yeah, because they would probably already have a criminal record that show affiliation of some sort of.
But the responsibility of enforcing this is on the school administrators. That's maybe what I was trying to get to, not law enforcement, but it's on school administrators to enforce the policy.
Because our concern is safety for our students in our site.
Yeah, my concern is sometimes they don't get it right. And so there may be someone who has a nickname and a administrator may think that that's a gang name. And they might not be on a gang contract, but they may think that that's a gang name, and so they start thinking that they're belonging to a gang or in a gang. And I think that the criteria could easily be mistaken, and so we just have to be careful. And
But that's name versus dress. That's already a different data.
right, but if we start checking off the criteria and you're wearing a red shirt and you're hanging around somebody that's wearing a red shirt and they're doing it, it's just, I think we really have to be careful with pigeonholing people. And I don't know, I think we just need to be really cautious.
Does there have to be behaviors first on contracts? Does it have to be behaviors exhibited first?
It can be, I was told that it can be a kid who's doing, the writing. And then that writing may have matched what was on the bathroom wall. And then there's a correlation there, and we're snapping pictures of somebody's book and then that. And so, it's a full-time job keeping up with everything that's happening and trying to figure out who's a part of that. It's pretty serious.
But then gang identification, it would be closed, it would be symbols, it could be, their attire.
It could be just their attire. It could be just a tattoo on their chest that they just recognize that says who they are. It could be, it's a lot of different things that they're piecing together.
So like you mentioned, belt buckle, that right there is a violation of the dress code because of its affiliation with gang.
I think what she's saying though is just because, like a moniker, like she's saying, like I had a nickname in high school from the gang members, because I hung out with every group. My nickname, my moniker was El Fly. Who knows why? But that was it, in high school, and I wasn't a gang member. So I think that's what that she's getting at. Well, he's got a moniker, El Fly. He's gang. So I think the whole being cautious about really just, anything that looks gangish, if you will, to be gang affiliated, and then going after that.
Like each student doesn't have like a 10 check off, like, oh, he's got 1, he's got 2, he's got 3, he's got 4, he's got 5, he's got 6. And then all of a sudden, in May, he got in a fight and it almost looked like he was going to swing. Oh, for sure, he's in there. I think that, the number one thing is we want to keep kids engaged, not disrupting the class and, educated. And so there are kids that, of course, are, I remember at Washington Elementary, Pee Wee Hobbs, there were kids there that were kids of the Hobbs. My son was there and I couldn't believe what was showing up. So I just, I think that, we just need to be really cautious.
Yeah, and I think,
But I'll go with whatever you guys think. I recognize what's here. I've been living here a long time. I've seen the drive-bys. We know people, from way back that have, gone to prison. They've lived here a long time. With the paper. Yeah.
We're trying to promote safety with attire, and then if their actions start showing that.
Well,
where
sure,
they're
that's a
talking
whole
about.
different thing, but there's gotta be.
and we're a data-driven district.
That's right.
And how are we going to gather data without implementing something to try and, I don't want to say solve an issue, address an issue? And if the data within 4 months says otherwise, then maybe we revisit something.
But see, that's why I asked, is if the dress code has been such an issue, then how many referrals have been written before now for dress code problems? How many times have you sent a kiddo home because he was dressed like a gang member? How many kids have been sent home because their shirt said Crips, Bloods, have Tupac with machine guns and all kinds of crazy stuff, or, the worst of the worst? How many? Was anybody, there's gotta be some sort of
somewhere at any of the schools, even, you know, like at the grade schools, can anybody say like, oh, you know, maybe in a year, 10, 20, 30, 40, you know, just to get a ballpark figure what we're looking at it? Or is it just, you know, safety is a concern because there's rival gangs and we're seeing an influx in reds and blues? It looks like there's more and more and more. Or is there really like a battle zone going on? You know, tell us what it looks like. What are the numbers? I mean, I've seen it. You know, so that one. Just to even like, you know, whatever this does start or doesn't start, maybe that's something we need to talk about, you know, moving forward, is getting kind of a tracking thing, you know. That sounds like implementation.
Yeah. And then, is that data even something that we can obtain because it's not confidential information of somebody being sent to the phone because of their dress code? Numbers? Or no?
No, we're not identifying it as anybody, but I think I think the first step is to determine like which direction to move with the policy. And I've heard a couple suggestions made around whether or not to include the definition of gang in the policy. If we decide to do that, we could bring it back forward, and so, or not. But I think that's the first decision to make, is whether or not to include that language in the policy.
You mentioned implementation and, you know, kind of a line between implementation and policy. I mean, could we explore something where they would have to be under that contract first before we could enforce a policy, gang-related policy?
Those contracts exist.
Yeah, those exist right now.
No, that's what I'm saying. So would a student need to first be identified or under contract, and then before this policy could be implemented on that individual, enforced on that individual? Maybe I'm not understanding the contracts right, but isn't it where you identify an at-risk youth or somebody who's in a gang, they're enrolled into this contract, the gang contract, and I'm just wondering, is it possible for them, they have to be under contract before we could enforce a gang dress code policy on them?
That's the practice. So right now,
Okay.
at the high school, there have been 10 students who have been identified to have violated the secret society gang policy. And so they've been put on restrictive plans, which restrict what they can and cannot wear. And so there are 10 students at the high school who are on those.
So, I mean, it sounds like a lot of this is already in place then. So I apologize for my ignorance. But it sounds like so, yeah. So I guess I do like in this previous one where we did, this section D or whatever in our previous one where we did define gang, and maybe that's what's needed here after subset C. In this newer version.
Oh, so
But-
you're saying add D.
Add D.
What about like resources? I mean, the school, there's resources for this, resources for that. We have, and I don't know how far we can go with this or how far administration can go or whatnot. In regards to contracts, we have the school resource officers. Maybe go to them. I mean, it's not a long process. Be like, hey, what do you know about this kid or this kid? Is there knowledge that there is verified knowledge that they are actually a gang member? And that way you create, there's an actual database of verified knowledge that these kids are actual gang members. Because as we talked about before, there's also recruiting going on, you know, and so there will be kids who are actively looking into getting to gangs. So those will be, you know, known at some point. But for others, can't you bounce off information with the school resource officers as a resource to say, hey, what can you tell us about so-and-so or such and such? And just to kind of get a good start, a solid start on, you know, those that are affiliated, you know, because I mean, I don't know if there are gang members in the schools that maybe still aren't on contracts. And I mean, is that possible?
Well, I would kind of infer then that they at school have not violated the policy. That if they had violated it at school, they would be under one.
An issue for as aggressive in order for them to be fall under a contract or be penalized or because of their and that's what's considered secret society, you know? Then it has to be addressed. And you say, well,
And-
it's a touchy subject, but we need to have something enforced in order to address the issue.
What if we added, affiliation in a gang
Or secret society.
As defined by policy, dot, dot, dot. As defined by policy, JFCE.
That does make sense, but I think I'm thinking of parents or even students who are reading. I think if it's more descriptive, I can see that as being like, oh, this isn't what I'm supposed to be wearing. This isn't allowed. As opposed to refer to policy, I don't know, ABC.
So what if we just left it as or affiliation in a gang or a secret society, and then did this as our first reading and left it for public comment? And then after public comment, we revisited this.
I mean, that can happen. You may or may not have people in public comment. That's.
Well, then by that time, we could,
You may or may not have people provide public comment, which you won't have additional voices to glean from. That's my concern. So what would we like to add? Do we want to add that last comment, or do we, it sounds like the other option would be adding D.
or we could revise C a little bit differently and add D. Can you read D?
Clothing that identifies gang members is prohibited. Gang is defined as a group that identifies itself through the use of name, unique appearance, language, hand signs, claiming a geographic territory, or the espousing of a distinct belief system that frequently results in criminal activity, disruptive or disorderly conduct.
So if we added that to the first reading and then brought it for public comment, if we weren't happy with it, or following public comment, found that it was overbearing, or we just decided we wanted it to be removed, we could always strike D at a later date. Is that correct?
Have a second.
Yeah, the board can
Yeah.
choose to do that.
Mhm.
So it sounds like, let's go with that from earlier. We would have D.
We'll add D and we'll bring it, to, for second reading with D included.
And so the next board meeting, will that be?
This can't be worked on the July 2nd meeting.
can, the board can do it as a special meeting, if we feel like that's enough time.
Yeah, the only thing is the packet won't be released Friday.
Oh, that's right, okay.
So it needs more time.
Needs more time, got it.
So then with that, if we wanted it implemented before the school year, would be like end of July.
Yeah, because we put out our student handbooks, and we want to make sure this is reflected in the handbook. So I would try to, if we could do it in July, would be helpful to make sure that the correct policy is included in the student handbook, which gets oftentimes distributed in August.
So we would have to call for a special. July. Right now, we don't have scheduled.
And do we feel like adding D addresses the concerns that you have all heard from the public about the specific gang language? Do you think this is adequate?
I think it encompasses it all. Because it's all, all encompassing. I mean, my perspective.
I believe adding secret society policy, it should be adequate enough as item D.
Right, we agreed, right? That's what we agreed on. I think we're just agreeing on, do we want to come back for another meeting?
Yes, the when. When do we bring this back?
So
Do I understand you right, that in order to have this in the student handbook, so that it's in the hand of students in August, we would need to have a meeting in July? Other than the July 2nd meeting, correct?
Yeah, we're taking a look at the handbook right now, but yeah, it would need to. Oh, maybe not, because it's, we would just provide the link in there to the revised.
Oh, okay.
I think we'd be okay. Yeah, I think August is a good one for us. Yeah. Yeah.
this would be after the August summit, conference.
Yes, it's after it's after the big conference.
Typically in August, you only have a regular meeting because you have a board retreat.
That's right. You have to schedule that. We do that on Tuesday. So it sounds like we have a when. With that. We have a date for when to review the second reading. The 27th.
The August board meeting.
Yes, the board meeting, the next board meeting.
All right.
Sounds like we can move on. All right, so moving on to our next agenda item is future agenda items. Have any requests for future agenda? So then you would ask for a report on cell phones, what would that look like?
Don't teachers already have an implementation that they have to put their phones in the baskets in the classrooms?
I think that would be for building.
That's the site.
So it sounds like we can add this to
No,
our
it's not.
list of items.
Maybe we add it to the list of items and we could discuss it further at the work session, not the work session, but the retreat, like what it is.
When we talk about goals. for next
Mhm.
time.
Yeah. I like the idea of setting up, yeah, what are our goals and then meeting, aligning the reports and the work sessions to meet those goals.
Any other requests? Seeing none. Our board calendar, our next board meeting is July 2nd, next Tuesday, regular organizational meeting,
Is this right? 5:15,
5:15.
not 5:45?
This one's usually a short meeting.
Okay, that was just, that's a lot for me. Right,
Okay. And item number 10, it is now 9:33. We adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.